Shalom and welcome to another lesson of life lessons, and we are on section 37, segment 37, parshat Shelach. This is a very interesting section. This is the story of the spies. This is when 12 spies were sent from the desert as a preparation to conquering the land of Israel, and they came back, 10 of them with a bad report and 2 of them with a positive report, and the consequences, how God was upset, and the result of that was that they stayed 40 years in the desert. So that first generation that witnessed all the miracles coming out of Egypt passed on, and then their children went into Israel. It's a very fascinating story with a lot of details, and as many things in the Torah, there's the simple meaning, and then there is the deeper meaning. Simple story is that people that were afraid to go in, and the big question that hangs over is, this is right after the Exodus. So they come out of Egypt, Mount Sinai. A year later, they're ready to go into the land. And here they come to Moses and they tell to Moshe, we would like send people out to let us know about the land and about the people. Where number one is, what do you have to do that? If God said, I'm taking you to the promised land, no question should be asked. And what we find very interesting is that when Moses heard that, he said to himself, I should discuss that with God. What's also interesting is he did not reject it, even though we see later on he gave it to them. However, he asked God, what shall be done? And here we find something very interesting, and it's based on the words, on the verse of the Torah here. In the beginning it says as follows, God said to Moshe, Shelach lecha anashim, send people for you, send people for yourself, and let them explore the land. The word for you in Hebrew, lecha, for you is extra here. Should have said, send the people. If God agrees, okay, so send the people. What does it mean for yourself? Our sages come and tell us something very interesting. They tell us, God said as follows, Moshe, I am not telling you what to do. You're going to have to use your judgment how to deal with the situation. If you wish, you could send them. If you don't. But it's going to be your decision. So therefore, shlach lecha, send for you. It's going to be your decision what should happen over here. We know the outcome, unfortunately. Moshe sent, people came back, 10 of them gave a bad report, people cried a whole night, and what happened later on, that they stayed in the desert and they didn't get into the Holy Land. Obviously, we're not talking here about simple people. We're not, even the people that were in the desert, they're not simple people. To just come and say, they couldn't overcome their evil inclination or their temptation, and they just sinned like this. Obviously, there's a very important message in this whole story here, and especially by what we say over here, that God is not instructing Moses what to do. Till this section, and we mentioned the beginning, this is the 37th. Until this section, week after week, parsha after parsha, chapter after chapter, we see all the time clear instructions from God. We have heard the Ten Commandments, we saw the other instructions. We don't see places, as we would say, that God shies away from giving instructions. Even in things that maybe we wouldn't even expect for some kind of a commandment from God, He comes in and tells us. Mixes in, as people would say, even in our private, day-by-day lives. But that's what it is. And here all of a sudden, such a major decision, such a major idea to go conquer the land. So we have to understand what's going on over here and what happened. And we will go to another section here, and then we'll go back to this, because then we'll understand the whole what's going on over here. Moses gives them instruction, what should be done. Let me first explain something very important, how in a simple meaning to understand what they were supposed to do and what went wrong. It will be like in our days, when people are asked to collect data, to collect. The person that's collecting, his job is only to present the information, but not conclusions. For that, there's somebody else that's their job to do the analysis and to present it. But then the regular person, what is his job? To collect information. Moses gave them questions. Find out, how are the people? How is the land? They come back. They're supposed to give the information, and that will be stored for when we're ready to go conquer. Because we all know the bottom line is that God is the one that's leading everyone. So we accept the fact that we have to try to do everything in nature too, but behind everything is the powerful Almighty that's pushing all this. They come back, and when they answer and they give the report, where there's nothing wrong with answering on the question, but then they add on, but we won't be able to do it or not. We can't do it. This analysis you were not asked for. You only asked to give information about the land and the people. But here's something very interesting about what happened. One of the two that did object to their negative is Caleb, known as Caleb. Now, when Moses gives them instructions, he says to them as follows. Tell me about the people that live in that country, what we know as Israel or Canaan. Are they strong? Are they weak? Are they many? Are there few? And the other question is, how about the land? How about the land? Is it a good land? Is it the fruits of the land? Okay. They come back, and they do answer those questions. We came, we saw the land, and here is the fruits. Here is the fruits. However, the people that live there are very strong and powerful. They didn't say anything else yet. And right away the verse tells us that Caleb gets upset, calms them down and says, we will for sure be able to conquer the land. And then they reply and they say, oh no, we won't be able to. However, the question that's being asked, they didn't say anything. Why? What was Caleb so suspicious about their report? When they started to answer the questions at this point, they're answering the questions. What's the problem? So we have they answer the questions. Caleb says to them, not to be afraid, we'll be able to conquer. And then they said, we won't be able to conquer. But they never said at first that we won't be able to conquer. Obviously, when Caleb was hearing their answers, he became suspicious. Why did he become suspicious? So I go back to what I was saying before, what Moses asked them and what they answer. Moses asked them in an order of things. How are the people and how is the land? They come back and answer first, how is the land? And then, how is the people? When Caleb saw they reversed the answers, they reversed the answers to the questions, he right away realized that something went wrong here. Now let me explain why. When Moses was asking them, in everything that we do, there is the goal, and then there is the side benefit that comes when we accomplish the goal. When we are asked to do something, and we are told, you're going to get a reward for what you're going to be doing, the benefit. You're going to do a certain things, you know what? You're going to get a reward for $1,000. You come back, and imagine that before you even report about what you were supposed to be doing, you turn to the people that sent you, where's my $1,000? Give me my $1,000 and then I'll tell you about the mission. Well, that's reverse. That's not what you asked to be done. So Moses comes and he says to them as follows. The goal is going to the land of Israel and conquering the land. What is that? The people. So you need to tell me what kind of people do we have there. We need to have that information. When we move to Israel, there's going to be a side benefit. The fruits over there are gorgeous, are unbelievable, big, huge. But it's a benefit, a side thing. They come back and Moses says, no, you have answers for me? Oh, look at these fruits. They're huge. So the first thing they're talking about is about the benefits. And then, oh, the people are strong. Caleb heard that they're getting lost in the benefit. They're talking about the reward. That means something doesn't smell right. You are not talking about the goals. When you got lost about the rewards and you're not talking about the goals, I know that it's not going good. Something is wrong. And therefore, you right away stop them. And that's a very important point. Now, seeing about what's going on over here, let's go back to what we're talking about. What's the conversation between God and Moses that he tells him, make your own decision over here. Especially when we talk about in Judaism, there's something very important. There's two steps. Step number one, that it is a foundation, is belief. Faith and belief. We believe in God. You rely on God. Even when things are tough, when things are very challenging, we always rely that with the power of our belief in God, things should be changed and things will be okay. That's a very important thing. In Hebrew it's called emunah. It's faith. But then we find out something else. That God didn't want us just to have faith. He also wanted that we should use our brains. We should try to understand. There's a famous verse that says, get to know me. Da et Elokei avicha. Know, not believe. Know the God of your parents. So there's a way in life, and there's no question when I don't do the understanding that this is the most important, is to have faith. I mean, that's a given. So there's no question that's how we do it. However, God wants us on the foundation and on the base of belief, then try to understand. There's even an interesting discussion in the Hasidic commentaries that explains that when a person tries to understand, then you come to a situation where sometimes you could say comfortably, I don't know. You try to understand, and then comes a point is where I don't understand. It's not the same as when you didn't even try to understand and you just say, I don't know. But a person put effort and they try to understand and tried, and we know that not everything we're going to understand, because you can't compare the human mind to what God is. The limited creature to the unlimited. It's impossible. However, God tells us, I don't want you just to be a robot. I want you to try to understand. And this is one of the reasons, in a simple way of looking at it, why we have brains, we have intellect, we have emotions. God created the human being as a complete human being with different parts to it. Certain things belong to the intellectual part, certain things belongs to the emotive part. That's the way it is. And certain things is just action. It's not even asked from us mind or heart. Just do it. Finished. Sometimes we need the emotions. Sometimes we don't want the emotions. This is not the time for the emotions. This is the time for the mind. But that's a complete picture that is demanded from us to try to understand and to do things. Going in to the land of Israel is going to change a very important approach what happened in the desert. They came out of Egypt, our ancestors, full of miracles. You live a life of miracles. Imagine that. Everything is just a miracle. Got no food. Comes down from heaven, the manna. Medrash tells, I got no, what's with my clothing? It automatically gets washed. No problem. They didn't have to work hard for an income. It was provided. Okay? Just sit and study, get involved in the godliness, in learning about the godliness of God. Finished. You have nothing more to worry about. All that is going to stop when they come into Israel. As holy of the land of Israel is, but the situation where everything was provided, just think about children growing up in a house as they're young. They have nothing what to worry about. Food is provided, place to sleep. What do parents just what? Go to school and be a good child and learn. But then comes the day where it's time for the child to take responsibility and to be a little bit of independent. A little bit independent. So same thing here. For the years in the desert, it was an in-between situation from coming out of Egypt as babies in knowledge. We had no idea, and here God comes, takes them out of Egypt. Just look as beginning of a relationship from day one. Miracles, Mount Sinai, splitting of the Red Sea, all the things that's happening in the desert, as I mentioned, food, everything. Soon, you're going into the land of Israel. You know what? I'm a powerful God. but you're going to have to conquer the land. I'm standing behind you, but you're going to have to conquer the land. It's not you're going to come in, fold your hands, and it's just going to happen. Or, I'm waiting for food to come from heaven. Ain't going to happen. Everyone is going to have a portion in the land, and guess what? You're going to have to sow, and you're going to have to then work on the land and wait till things grow. With all the challenges that having a piece of land have, but that's what it is. I want you to get involved in the earth. And it's an interesting saying, one of the things that the spies say when they cry about the land. In Hebrew they say here, Eretz ochelet yoshvea. It's an earth that eats up its inhabitants. Where in the simple meaning they were trying to say is, that's what they tell us, they saw lots of funerals. They saw it's not an easy place the way they looked on it. But in a deeper meaning, it's saying is, we're going to have to become involved with earth. We're till now involved with spirituality. We're on a different level completely. And all of a sudden, it's a change. And our sages tell us that's what they were afraid of. They were afraid of. But the bottom line, what God wants from us is to create a dwelling place down here. There's a famous saying that they say is, if the idea was that we should be just spiritual, then it's enough with angels. You don't need human beings. The fact that God created human beings, because it's not, I wouldn't say satisfied, it's not enough, the idea of angels and spirituality. He wants a human being with physical challenges, and that human being turns to God and thanks Him. That's the most powerful thing it is. And that's what the idea was of going into the land and working the land. So imagine that. If God turns to Moses and says, yes, 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 they should just rely on me. Don't send the spies. That's defeating the whole idea. Then he's not telling them to use their brains and try to do it on their own, and with the idea that God is behind it. So the idea really was to open up the way that all of a sudden, not how we would call it, to think out of the box. To put yourself faith in God. Imagine you being hired, your first job or whatever it is, and you need to have trust that everything is going to work out. When you're out there in the world for the first time, it is a little bit scary. It is a little bit challenging. But if you have a good foundation and a good system of values of faith, that should help to be able to move forward. That's why God tells Moses, you're going to Israel. It's a new stage in life. I am not telling you. I am there. I'm ready to hold your hands. I'm ready to help out. But you're going to have to figure it out on your own how to bring it down. I'm not telling you. So now, some people come and say, oh, Moshe was wrong. Because look, they came back with a bad report. No. Moshe taught us for all the generations to come. Go out there. Find out how you could do it in a natural way. The fact itself that 10 came with a bad report, that doesn't change the situation. 2 of them did come with a good report. And if these fail, that doesn't mean that the next generation has to fail. But we need to have that principle. And that principle is very, very important. And this is what's happening here in the beginning of the foundation of Am Yisrael, of the Jewish people, of our ancestors, as they're starting out. That is going to become very, very important. Because down in our history, we're going to have many times where it looks like that the challenges are way, way beyond the solutions. So we always have to think about how God wants us to try whatever we could to overcome the challenge. And this is what's important in this story over here. So going back to the beginning, what it says over here, send for yourself people, it's Moshe, your idea. You're the one that should help them to try to understand things. What's interesting about this is, and to bring out the point that this was not just a total failure, 38 years later, when they're ready to go into Israel to conquer the land of Israel, they used all that information that these spies has brought. That information about the people, where do they live, and what's the strongholds, where's the fortified cities and all that, it was used. So it was not for nothing, the mission. There was no question it was a very important mission. But that little step there, where all of a sudden, number one, you are starting to give the analysis to the situation instead of just reporting back the way it is. And then just to look on things that even though it may be hard, but that's the idea. The idea is to turn a situation and transform the situation into a much powerful and better situation. And that's what the lesson that God was trying to tell us right away in the beginning. And that's why the story of the spies has become, for all the generations to come, even for our days, how to look up things. And we have to always remember two things: faith, believe, and then a knowledge. We try to bring it down. As I mentioned before, get to know the Creator as much as we can. And I will conclude with the words of the famous Maimonides. He says, there's an obligation to have faith, but also to know. Knowing is something very important. So the knowledge is based on the faith. You can't just go by knowledge without faith. You have the faith, and on that you build the knowledge, and may we all be successful in our faith and in our knowledge. Thank you.